So I want to make secondaries work in this game. Obviously, I think we all can agree they've been nerfed this patch. They're not what they used to be, but they're not awful either if you spec it right. I've been finding it's possible to play with these secondaries. Their accuracy is not great, but for some reason I've been finding that my shells are dealing more damage per hit. I don't know what that reason is, if something's changed, or if they tweaked something behind the scenes, but the shells that do hit seem to be dealing more damage. So I'm getting less shell hits, but maybe similar damage overall sometimes. So I don't know what that's about. Maybe with poor dispersion, it's hitting more areas it can pen, so like less belt armor, maybe. I don't know the reason, but it feels alright. It definitely feels okay. So obviously, this is a pretty YOLO situation here that I've put myself into. I didn't expect 3 ships to be here. And this probably would have gone better if I'd been able to kill the Nuremberg in any reasonable amount of time. Because he just keeps getting overpenned, which is hilarious. I couldn't believe it. I can't believe it took this long to kill him. But the way I've set up my build for secondaries is we're getting the range, and in fact, we're also getting the accuracy. But I'm skipping out on things like the reload boost, and I'm skipping out on things like fire prevention, extra heals. This is a very opportunistic build. It is a very, very, very opportunistic build. So the issue, I guess, with that is you need to play it incredibly smart. So you can't just kind of YOLO in the open water and expect to do well. You need to use islands to your advantage. And I've had some videos talking about this and talking about how you need to use islands intelligently to actually get close to the enemy and use your secondaries. But I mean, you can see we're up well over 100 hits already. Unfortunately, both my front turrets break here. I might have to spec into some extra turret health because it was kind of crazy to have this happen. This has been happening multiple times to me in my secondary ships, so I don't know what that's about, but unfortunately we don't actually end up killing this guy. But it's a decent example of what you can do when you actually have the opportunity to push in with your secondaries. It's pretty good. We nearly did a 3-on-1. I don't know if we won this game or not. I just quit out after. But I also then took the Cur first into ranked, because random battles is not where you want to be with a secondary build right now. There's too many people playing too campy of boats. So the maps are just too packed with powerful long-range HE spam at tier 10. It's obviously doable at lower tiers, but at tier 10 it's just not good enough. So in ranked, it's possible to push. It's not easy, but it's possible. And that's what we're going to do here. So we do have a Hindenburg over here, and we likely have another 2 ships over here, is what I'm guessing. I was hoping for only 1 other ship other than the Hindenburg, but it ends up there's actually 2. So GK has okay armor when it's angled, but when it's a Thunderer, I mean, he's just going to slap you for 10k and light a fire, and you just have to deal with that. So using our heal early so that we can have our heal back up for when we'll need it again, because we will be needing it again. And you'll see you do shoot from both sides, but you have to pick which side is accurate. It's a bit of a meme, I think, both sides. There you go, double fire. See, if fire prevention would be handy in some of these situations, I think. But I'm going to try and use islands intelligently to prevent the Thunderer and the Hindenburg from shooting at me while I'm dealing with this Des Moines, who reverses smartly behind the island, and we don't actually get any damage on him. But island usage is key here. You cannot expect to do well in a battleship that's a brawling secondary focused build and do it in the open water. You have to use islands. So you see, I'm pausing here for a second. I'm trying to take my time with things and let my heal and my damage control come back up. Hiding behind islands is not a bad thing when you don't have your damage control or your heal back. You see, that brief period gave me around 20 seconds closer to my heal and my damage control, which is very good. And in that time, we weren't losing health. We weren't getting set on fire again. That's how you have to play it. A nice chunk into the Des Moines here. GK is a pretty decent ship against broadsides at close range. And the best thing you can do is use islands. And here I should have turned to the right. It was a mistake for me to go on the left-hand side of this island. I had assumed falsely that the Thunder would have stuck behind that that island on my right. So I wanted to kind of 1v1 the Hindenburg for a bit, but that didn't end up working out. So I kind of went to the wrong side. You'll see we have our heal going, but I'm letting a double fire burn for a little bit, which probably was a misplay on my part to use my damage control there, now that I'm thinking about it. If I wanted to optimally do this, I would have waited on my damage control till I was behind this island to my right. So you can see I'm going to turn to the right here, get this island between me and the enemy, and hopefully go dark and survive here, because pushing into a full health Thunder and Hindenburg is a very, very, very good way to die, especially when you don't have a heal or a damage control. Fortunately, our Thunder takes out the Des Moines, and we're just trying to get out of here and live. That's kind of my whole goal right now. So the extra range on the secondaries does help us out a little bit, because we're now hitting this Thunder outside of what the old secondary range was. So it helps every once in a while, but the accuracy really does kill it a lot of the time. But you'll notice we're dark. And we're only eating one fire right now. That was one perma-fire we ate. I got pretty lucky there. But you'll see I'm stopping. I'm trying to keep the island in between the Thunder and the Hindenburg. And now my work here is done. I truly believe that. The Petropavlos can just bow into the sea cap, take it, because his concealment's so good. I now want to go help the other flank, because they're getting pushed off the A cap. But playing secondary battleships now, I think, is more of an opportune thing. You can't just YOLO in and expect to do well, unless you know what you're dealing with. Here I kind of did YOLO in, but I knew there was islands that I could use as cover, right? I could isolate fights. I could make sure my ship was put into the best position possible to not only deal damage, but to survive as well. You can still do the full YOLO and get some hits with your secondaries, but you'll definitely die if you just full send it. And this is kind of a weird or different playstyle than what you might be used to with a secondary build, where in the past you had enough points to take all of the, or a lot of the survivability upgrades you needed along with your secondaries. Now you have to pick. There's a lot less builds that are viable now, just because you don't have enough points to get all of the mandatory quote-unquote builds, which fire prevention, concealment, the superintendent one, I'm still forgetting what that one's called, but superintendent for 4 points, Deadeye, and then those are 4 really mandatory skills, and you have to pick 3, and that's not including any secondary skills for reload and for accuracy on your secondaries. So you have 6 skills that you really want to take. And previously, you could probably get 4 of them. You could probably get 4 of them into your secondary build, and now you can only get 3 of them. So that's kind of too bad. But that's what happens when you move Superintendent up a point and then make a skill that's entirely mandatory in Deadeye. And then because Deadeye is mandatory, Concealment's mandatory. So that is what I'm running, is Deadeye, Concealment, and then secondary accuracy is what I've decided to run. And it's been working pretty well. You're going to see not only GK, but Pommern definitely worked really well. Turns out I think Pommern will be my ship of choice for secondaries, just because Tier 9 Matchmaker is very nice. You're often not facing a CV. You're not dealing with all these Tier 10 sniping ships, like a Thunder on the J line on the border. Just border scrubbing for whatever reason. Yeah, people play in a pretty pathetic way these days, so you gotta make sure that you're at the correct tier. So I think Tier 9 will be okay for this. GK, you can make it work if you get the right scenario. And, this ranked game was probably pretty lucky, because there was not really much for DD threats. There wasn't a CV threat. all I had to deal with was a Thunder, Conqueror, and Hindenburg that would pose a real threat to me. If I angle, the Stalingrad's not that big of a deal. Same with Yamato. GK, of course, has the massive weakness of poor main gun arcs, so you got to give so much broadside just to get all of your guns off, and that's kind of what holds it back a lot of the time. I wish a buff I would love to see for this ship is to have its rear turret angles improved maybe by 10 degrees, because they're currently at 45, so if you buffed them by 10 degrees, it'd be a 35 degree angle, which is still enough to get penned, but not so much that you're just, like, guaranteed to take massive hits. To put it in perspective, Montana's around 30 to 32 degrees. I don't actually remember what it's like. So it still wouldn't be Montana levels of good, but it'd be a little bit more comfortable, I think. But I doubt they make that change. They just seem to like GK having this massive weakness. But secondaries can work. You know, we're up over 100 hits in a ranked game, and we still have a lot of our health. Now, we have lost we've used up all of our heals, so not having that extra superintendent does hurt us here if this game were to go on much longer, but it really doesn't. This Yamato dies, the Stalingrad ends up dying, and then we just win the game. So, a decent push, all things considered. Now, this is something I want to talk about too. Concealment lets you get into interesting positions. I have not been spotted yet in this game. And look at what's coming up my flank. A Mogami that has no clue that I'm here. Right? Concealment, when played right, is very useful on a secondary battleship. So, I got fortunate enough to spawn in G1, so that's why I'm up on this corner here. But it's pretty decent to get these flanks. If you spawn mid, it's a little harder to get on the flank and use islands and concealment to get into places, but it's possible. It's possible to do it on certain maps, and if you get the right spawn and your teammates go with you, it works out really nicely. And Pommern at close range is pretty disgusting with its secondary accuracy in that. It kind of sucks, but you can hit quite a few shells at closer ranges, and they're all full penning because we have IFHE on this build, which a nice bonus, I will say, of the secondary battle or the captain changes is IFHE for battleships is now a 2-point skill instead of 4 points. So there is something to be said for making the build a little bit cheaper. Now notice how good Deadeye is. That's a bow in Gneisenau at 17 kilometers, and we're in a Pommern, a traditionally poor accuracy battleship. And we hit half our shells and did 10k damage. So, Deadeye is a very useful skill on some of these battleships that have really, really bad accuracy, and that's why I'm taking it. So I take Deadeye to be useful at longer ranges with these builds. I'm taking Concealment so I can get into more interesting positions. And I'm taking Concealment as a bonus to Deadeye, so you get more activations of Deadeye. And then secondary accuracy, because you need the accuracy to really make secondaries work at all. So it's decent. It's a decent build. We're obviously giving up a lot in survivability, which is where your positioning comes in. It is very critical to have a good knowledge of how to position your ship. So it's possible to do these crazy pushes. Like here, I'm just YOLOing in. I could have easily sat at the back, but I'm not, because I'm looking for secondaries here. This is a full commit right here. So, you know, bad accuracy though, right? You got double Citadel like that. And the Missouri hits us for 14k Ballon through our Superstructure. So this is the biggest issue with secondary battleships. The closer you are to the enemy in these secondary battleships, it seems like Wargaming has given specifically secondary battleships the weakest superstructures in the game. The easiest to hit and full pen with. It's kind of crazy. A lot of the longer range sniping style of battleships have harder to hit superstructures. Or ones that at least don't full pen or give full pens to the enemy team. It sucks. It really does suck. I'm going to be honest. But there's nothing you can do about it. So I'm just trying to weave back and forth as these guys are shooting me. with AP into my Superstructure, and I'm just trying to live. But it's really quite silly, I think, the amount of damage Superstructures take. I don't know, I can't believe it, actually. But you gotta deal with it. So, in positions like this, I am basically dead. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take out the 2 tier 9 battleships on this flank. I'm giving my team a perfect crossfire right now. While I'm still alive, this Musashi is going broadside to me. My team should be killing him. They're not, but they should be. If I had a bit more help in this game, I probably would have done a little bit better. You can see my team was a little bit too passive outside of A. And we take another massive hit from Missouri into our Superstructure. That's kind of how it goes right now. But hopefully we can finish this Musashi off. He's not angling perfectly to me, so that should mean that we can Citadel him. And you can see both sides of my ship are shooting secondaries, you know, which is, it's something at least. And we do finish off the Musashi. His cheek is definitely vulnerable. Here I am torping with widespread because you can see you can shoot your torps farther ahead of your ship than you normally would with narrow spread. That's something to do if you think you're going to die before you get your torps off, to make sure you hit at least one torp on an enemy that's right in front of you. We don't die quite yet. Missouri is using the border to try and get away, which is a little unfortunate because, you know, we possibly could have caught his broadside if border mechanics worked a little more favorably. But that's it. Our heal's done. We have no more health left, and obviously, you know, our Superstructure is still a weakness, so we're definitely going to die to that. I thought maybe I could get one more salvo into this Missouri if he turns broadside, because as we all know, Missouri is pretty vulnerable on its broadside armor, right? He's giving us a 40-degree angle now, 43, 45-degree angle, and we get no damage, so unlucky, but sometimes that just happens. People just get lucky, and that's okay. Now this game, again, we're playing the flank, we are using islands to our advantage, and we are attempting to push in and kind of have a nice brawl. And this one works out pretty well as well. You'll see that I'm trying to play around my concealment. My goal is to not get spotted or keep myself undetected for as long as possible until I can get some good solid island cover. So the good island cover here is, well, right next to me, to my left here, or way up in the corner. That's basically where you have to go. You don't really want to stop on that mid island on the BC line. You don't really want to stop there. You want to make sure you get up to those islands in the B line, B9 area. Again, we're going to see the power of Deadeye in action. It makes this ship pretty solid. It makes this ship pretty solid in long range firepower. Sure, you only have 380s, but they actually can deal pretty good damage against broadsides because you do have 12 of them. Your reload does kind of suck, but that's okay. You get 12 guns at this tier. You're almost a Kerr first, basically, is what it feels like. With not as much HP, a worse turtleback that doesn't work all the time. But you get torps. And torps can be very, very, very useful. One of the biggest issues with brawling it out in a secondary build is a battleship that just comes and rams you. That's one of the hardest things to deal with, and torpedoes definitely help you with that kind of scenario. It's really, 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 really nice to have torpedoes on board, even though these ones tend to break a lot of the time. But that's okay. For the most part, people don't usually know when they've broken your torps, so even just having the possibility of the threat is enough to scare people off from coming and trying to ram you. They'll usually try and turn out in some way that'll give you a big advantage. Here, I let my secondaries finish off the Spooky. It took a little longer than I thought it would, but we get there eventually. It's not quite as consistent at closer ranges as I would like, but, you know, we get a little more range now. The builds are worse. I'll admit it. The builds are worse. They're harder to play, but you can still make a secondary build work. They're not entirely dead. For those of you who played them last patch, you can probably find a way to play them this patch. For the people who never played them anyway, there's no reason to play them now. If you're someone looking for the optimal build to play, this is not it. This is mainly just for fun. This is trying to create interesting scenarios where you can get a little bit of fun out of the game if you like brawling. Yeah, it's not really bringing anybody to secondary builds. It's probably forcing people to stop running them for the most part, but it is at least still kind of possible. So here we got a Bow in Missouri. You know, that's a pretty decent target, as well as a Jean Bart. And it's entirely possible for me to kill both of these guys, because our torps deal quite a bit of damage, and if I can get in between them or something like that, you can get torps off both sides, do some massive damage. So I'm not looking to get caught in a crossfire here. My goal, when I see the Jean Bart going up to the Missouri, my goal is to kind of bow into the Jean Bart and get my secondaries off on the right-hand side towards this Missouri, and maybe use my right-hand torps on the Missouri or the Jean Bart. But the Jean Bart turns into the islands, which is going to make things trickier for me if he knows how to position his ship well, because I am just running into a crossfire now. But my goal will be to keep the Jean Bart behind an island while I am broadside to him, so that I can, you know, fully focus on the Missouri. And Pommern secondary angles aren't too bad, but you can see the hits don't tick up nearly as fast as they used to. But it's seemed like I've been dealing more damage. I actually don't have the end screens here for you to show that, but it seemed like they were dealing more damage per hit. But yeah, I don't actually have the end screens to show you, but you know, I was getting like, sometimes I think in my Georgia I got a game where I had 60 hits and it was still like 18k damage or something like that, which is not what would usually happen in my Georgia before. There you can kind of see the weakness of the turtleback. I don't know if that guy citadeled me or not, but it was a lot of damage. It felt like he did. Oftentimes, if you turn at all while giving broadside, you will eat citadels in a Pomburn or a Freddy. Both the tier 9s share this weakness of kind of a weak turtleback. It doesn't dip low enough below the water. So Bismarck is safe. Bismarck is safer. And so is Curve so is Knives now, so is Scharnhorst than this ship. This is probably the weakest one as far as turtleback. But there you go. IFHE secondaries penning the rear deck of the Missouri. Gets us a kill even when our secondaries are offline, and you can see a torp tube is dead already. So you're going to lose your torp tubes quite a bit on this ship. That's just kind of how it goes when you're brawling. Your torps are just so exposed that they're going to die. They don't have very much health. I would definitely consider preventive maintenance in this build. I'm not fully sold on what build I'm running, but this is what I found to work a little bit. I've been testing out a bunch of different options, whether it's full secondary, full not secondary, only taking the range buffs for secondaries, and then no accuracy. That wasn't really very good, though. It felt kind of like a waste of points because I wasn't getting any accuracy. It's hard. It's definitely hard to find the right build, but this is one that I've found to work reasonably well. Not perfect, but reasonably well. Because, you know, I'm getting some pretty solid games here. I had quite a bit of fun playing these matches out. You can see the secondary hit rate. It's okay. It hits some, and then it goes long periods without hitting. And it's kind of sad to see so few hits. It's just like, it's like they're intentionally aiming around his ship in situations like that. That's kind of the frustrating thing. I would love to see these be maybe, I don't know, 10 to 20% more accurate. I know they'll probably not buff it back up to what it was, but it would be nice if they did. The way the meta is currently, as we all know, it's quite passive. And there I'm realizing my torps are dead. I didn't realize earlier. That's something you should probably keep an eye on while you're playing this ship. Because if you go into a brawl and you don't realize your torps are dead, it's a pretty bad way of... it's not a great way to find out your torps are gone. That's for sure. I think secondary builds are playable. I really do. They're not easy. they're not easy at all to play. If you want easy to play, just go play a Carrier or a Thunderer or a Conqueror this patch. Like, that's easy to play. But if you're looking for something fun and you like brawling stuff and you enjoy brawls and close range fights and that kind of thing, I think they're still playable. I really do. I don't know if the main issue that I have with saying they're playable is that I have to be like on it and like really thinking about my positioning for most of the game. I mean, this was just a blowout at the end, so here it's obvious to push in, but I have to really concentrate on my positioning if I want to make a build like this work. So something to consider if you want to run a secondary build and you struggle with positioning would be to give up Deadeye and Concealment and take the extra heal and the extra fire prevention, that kind of thing. You would be sacrificing some long-range accuracy, and you would be sacrificing Concealment, which allows you to push in a little easier and get to some positions that you wouldn't otherwise be able to get to. But if you don't know what positions to look for, that might be something to consider for you, is to just totally give up on Concealment and that and go full fire prevention, extra heal, and then just try to survive long enough. The biggest issue with going an extra heal on a German battleship is you often die before you get through your heals, unless you know how to position. So it's tricky. The game ended there. That's why it cut off. Our shells didn't actually land. That was a pretty abrupt cut. Sorry. Yeah. So Georgia is a really fun one this patch too. Because of Deadeye, you have even better accuracy on these guns. And of course, having 30 millimeters of overmatch, crazy accurate guns, good reload, insane speed, and secondaries as a bonus, I would say. They're more of a bonus on the Georgia right now. Is really, really, really nice to play. And you can see I'm going up to this side again. I got really lucky again, and I got the G1 spawn. You can't really make this play. Maybe you can. It's really hard to make this play on the other side of the map to go to the I-9 square because the island is much lower. So if you're getting spotted, the island isn't actually going to save you from shell hits, where this island will. The other thing is there's some pretty big islands. Well, there's islands on this side blocking your escape too. You see that in F1 and J6 or 5. Those islands block your escape here pretty dramatically, actually. If you're trying to kite away along the one line, you have to give broadside eventually if you're kiting away. So it makes it a lot trickier. It'd be nice if they moved those islands, actually, along with the one in G10. For whatever reason, the north spawn going to this northern island has a way easier time because they don't have an island to deal with. It's weird. It's really weird map balancing, man. The more you look at the way things are balanced in this game, the more questions you have. So it's probably better to just ignore it. But yeah, that's one of the weird things. Now, got Yamada up close. Obviously, I'm gonna try and fake like I'm turning out, and then slow down and turn in. That's my play here to try and dodge the torps. I figured he would torp right away as soon as I got spotted, and he would see me turning out. So I'd hoped that he would whiff and try and hit me while I turned out. And you can see, he did. So we got kind of lucky there that he got super greedy for that one. And now look at our reverse speed. This is one of the best things about Georgia. You can just slam it in reverse with speed boost up and just dip away. It's great. A really, really nice feature of this ship. You can get away from bad positions very quickly as long as you have a speed boost available. And you'll see that I think we hit like 16 knots going backwards or something like that, or maybe even a little more. It's kind of hilarious how fast you can go in reverse with this thing. Or maybe it was 15 knots. Something like that. It's fast in reverse. So here I know I have some time to get away because that Gajimata will have a bit of a torp reload. But I don't really want to leave this position just yet. Simply because I can get some pretty opportune shots on these anchorages, or maybe the Ibuki trying to push back in. That's what I'm looking for, is an opportunity shot right now, because they don't think that I'm here right now. They think I'm on that corner just waiting, so we might be able to surprise someone. Unfortunately, the Ibuki is already turning out, and my shell hit the island from my front turrets. I should have waited a bit more, but you can see what the very accurate shells can do on a Georgia to a cruiser. You hit one citadel, it's 15,750 damage, which is a lot at tier 9. These guns are nasty, and they're more accurate than Ohio. That is the thing. Ohio gets one more turret, better turret traverse, a better hull, more HP, all that stuff. Faster reloading secondaries that have a better fire chance. But Georgia gets better accuracy. Sorry, better accuracy is what Georgia gets. So it's pretty amazing to use in these tier 7 games. You just crush people. Here, I didn't want to risk turning in at all. Decided to just... I don't know how that missed, actually, but our secondaries get us. There's weird things going on this patch, but I didn't want to just slow down and turn in like last time because I'm just too close. So he'll get me. So risk the turnout, the full turnout, get completely angled away from him, and then we only eat one. So not too bad. Not too bad. And we can heal it. If you eat torps on your stern or your bow, you can heal it a lot more than if you eat it on your torpedo belt. Yes, it makes more sense to eat it on the torpedo belt in some scenarios because, you know, it has the reduction, but you can't heal any of it back. It's a citadel is what you got to treat it as. So something to keep in mind there. If you can, I usually like to try and eat torps on my bow or my stern if I can, because I can heal the damage. And that's what battleships are about, is healing the damage they take. They give up a lot in maneuverability, concealment, and really armor, let's be honest. Having a giant superstructure like this is a huge weakness. So they give up a lot of that stuff just to gain the ability to heal the damage they take back. Now you saw what we did to that anchorage too with just our front guns. This ship's pretty nasty. It's pretty nasty. Here you can see the secondary accuracy. Again, I do have the accuracy module, so this is as accurate as they will get. But I don't have the reload mod because I'm taking Deadeye Concealment. I just think that's a little bit better. Still messing around with it, but yeah, 15k from 3 shell hits. Pretty good. And of course, Georgia still has the best thing in the game as far as battleship heals are concerned, which is the fast cooldown heals. So we're not really at that much risk of dying because we know we have around 24, 25k HP that we can still heal back. But the game ends up ending. So that's kind of the look at the American and, well, mainly the German battleships. I think these builds are playable. I really do. I don't think that they're that bad. They've just gotten harder. Now you can see we got 62 hits with our secondaries in this game. You know, we didn't get a ton of time with our secondaries, but 62 hits and 17k from those 62 hits, it's decent. It's decent, you know? So the way I've been setting these things up is pretty simple, I think. I've kind of talked about my explanation, but Deadeye is just so good. I've talked about this over and over again, but it's just so good for a battleship. 10% dispersion is more than 10% more damage. It's 10% better odds to get, like, 66% more damage, right? Because a full pen deals 33% of a citadel. So it's 10% better odds to get that citadel. It's so good. It's so good. And then because of that, concealment is so good. More so than just getting into better positions, being able to disengage better. It's on top of that, you get the bonus of better Deadeye. It's just that good. So that's why I'm running those two. Improve secondary battery aiming. I think this is just required if you want to make a secondary build work. You give up emergency repair expert, you give up fire prevention, and you give up reload. I did try builds where instead of this improved secondary aiming, I ran the reload, because when a ship is within your secondary range, you get 10% reload on your main guns, which is a really, really, really strong upgrade too. But I found it just too frustrating to have the secondaries not hit. And I can give up 10% reload to get the secondaries actually be useful. Because I'm giving up a lot in anyway with this to make the secondaries somewhat useful. You know, at least on a Georgia, I'm not giving up my accuracy. But on a German battleship, I'm giving up my accuracy module. So I don't think this one's very good. It might be okay on the American ones. It's so tricky. You can see I'm still wrestling with what's the best thing to take. But I really do believe Concealment Deadeye is just required on everything. So I'm running aiming. Obviously got to run the range on secondaries. I decided to run AA Gunner so that I could run a spotter plane instead of a fighter plane. I don't know if that's worth it or not. Georgia, you'd probably want to take Grease the Gears instead because the turret traverse is so slow. And I am running Gunfeeder just because switching to HE is sometimes necessary for these Bowian battleships that you just can't deal any damage to. You see my turrets have been breaking, so something to consider is preventative maintenance as well. But it's tricky to fit all this stuff in, man, because you want Adrenaline Rush, you want basic survivability, you want all these things, man. So in a way, Wargaming has done a good job of diversifying builds where you're forced to make decisions, but they've just made it so you just have to take certain ones in order to stay competitive. You don't have to take these, but you're not running the best build you can in your battleship then. So let's take a look at my Pommern captain, which I am running Luchins, who's trained for my Hindenburg. Again, very nice change where each commander has 4 different slots, 4 different builds, one for battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and aircraft carriers. It's very nice. And then if you have a lot of premiums, you can throw your special commanders around on all your premiums, and it's very, 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 very good. Very nice change. So again, I'm running the exact same tier 4 skills and tier 3 skills, but I am running IFHE because, again, the 105s get up to 32 mils a pen then, and that can help you deal with battleships a lot easier, like you saw with that Missouri. I killed with secondaries, which I would not have been able to do if I didn't have IFHE, or not as easily, because the 150s would still pen 32, but not as easily, because these aren't as good at guns as the 105s are. And then Gunfeeder again. I think I'll probably run Adrenaline Rush when I get the extra 2 points. I think maybe basic survivability. I'm not sure. It's a toss-up between these two for me once I get the full 21 points. And that's why I have 1 undistributed skill point, is because I don't want to do that commander respec once I get enough experience to have those extra points. I don't want to respec a full 19-point commander just to spec the exact same commander except 1 skill different. That seems like a waste to me. That's why I'm doing leaving 1 skill point untouched. My GK looks a little bit different. You can see I'm taking AA instead of IFHE, and that's because tier 10 carriers just screw you over so much that it's important to get that out, I think. And I am running my spotter plane as well, because tier 10 you need more range than 20.6. So, but your reload is pretty nice with the reload mod, 25.5. So there are nice things around. And to just show my modules again on the other ships, basically the same kind of deal here, and on Georgia as well. So you'll notice I am running accuracy on Georgia because it's just that good. This 11% accuracy plus another 10% accuracy, amazing. You saw how it's just citadeling cruisers. Very good. It's doable to play these ships. It is possible. It's just harder, and you got to use islands better. So I do have an island battleship brawling guide using islands. Kind of. I don't know if I'd call it a guide. I kind of did call it a guide, but it's more the thought process on how to use islands and isolating 1v1. So that's what this video kind of was too, a little bit. So thanks for watching, guys, and I hope you have a great day.